Peace, everybody. Peace, family. We're here to talk about this amazing, amazing moment that we're in, where we are seeing righteous resistance, righteous opposition, radical solidarity with the Palestinian people. Right now, since October 7th, there has been one of the most uh, stunning, honestly, stunning developments that we've seen. First, on October 7th, we saw 1,400 Israeli civilians killed in an attack by Hamas in Israel. Then, since October 7th, we have seen a wide scale um, retaliation. And I'm using retaliation in quotes because it's a very complicated question when we start talking about rules of war, occupation, what self-defense legitimately is. There's a whole conversation we could have that I'm willing to have. But for the sake of this conversation, what we've seen is Israel respond to the Hamas attacks with extraordinary amounts of disproportionate force. Let me begin as I always do, because we don't have the benefit of the doubt in the pro-Palestinian movement. So let me be very clear. I, Marc Lamont Hill, do not endorse the killing of civilians, the targeting of civilians by anybody. I believe that Hamas's attack was a violation of international law. I believe that it was a violation of all conventions of war, and I believe that it's a violation of Islamic law in terms of protecting the innocents, children, non-combatants in general, the elderly. I don't support Hamas's position and disagree with Hamas's position. I also disagree with the Israeli response. The Israeli response has been disproportionate. We've seen hospitals blown up, destroyed, and not just a Shifa hospital, which people are now saying is a Hamas uh, headquarters, which again, I have yet to see the intelligence for that. I've yet to see the evidence of that. People are saying it, but I ain't seen no evidence of that yet. What I have seen is hospitals and schools crumbled. I've seen people, particularly in the north, not only be attacked by Israeli fire, but also forced into the south in a completely unreasonable time frame. In other words, the argument is, oh, we're giving them a warning. Well, that's not really true. The roof knocking that used to happen from Israel, that is to say, they would drop a non-explosive first, non-explosive munition before letting people know that their homes would be bombed. That stopped after October 7th, to the extent that it ever happened. The humanitarian corridors were functionally eliminated. People who were told they had 24 hours to get from the north to the south were obstructed in every way imaginable, both intentionally and just by the pure logjam. I mean, you're talking about 25 square miles north and south, 5 miles east and west. You're effectively talking about a very tiny place, the tiniest, most dense place maybe on earth, with 2.2 million people living in it, half of whom are children. We've seen thousands of children killed. We've seen countless elderly killed. We've seen hospitals be denied electricity, fuel, water. These are all war crimes. Let me be very clear. These are all war crimes. What does this have to do with Democrats in America? Well, let me tell you. And by the way, while I'm telling you that, y'all hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the join button. In that order. Hit that like button right there. The likes matter. They get people to see the content. They get people to understand what I'm talking about. I'm trying to create an independent media space here. I'm also trying to create an independent, public, radical education space so we can talk about ideas, learn ideas, and study together. To do that, I need y'all to hit the subscribe button. I need to expand the platform, and I need some of y'all to join if you can. If you can join that bronze level, that's all I'm talking about, $3.99. It allows me to create the media. It allows me to produce this platform. It allows me to expand the platform. It allows me to bring people on and to pay people to come on. It allows me to do a lot of work that I'm doing for the community. I'm not getting paid a dollar for this. So please understand this is purely for political education and community education. That said, the question is, what does this have to do with Democrats? And why should Democrats be forced to pay for the actions of Israel? That would be the question. Shout out to S. Tara Toffel for joining the MLH fam at the bronze level. I love you, appreciate your family. Um, the answer is everything that Israel does can only happen with the support and the backing of the United States. Contrary to what people say, Israel is a settler colonial project. There's no mistaking that. Even early Zionists argue that it's colonial. Look at the revisionist Zionist movement, which I'll talk about in another instance. The revisionist Zionist movement talked about themselves as saying the Palestinians will have no choice but to see us as anything but colonists, colonialists. They have no, they'd be fools not to fight back. This is the early Zionist logic. So how does the early Zionists function? It functions with the support of the British. The British, it was the British mandate for Palestine. It's the Balfour Declaration of 1917 that allows the early issue of the early Zionist community to have the imprimatur of empire that gives them both the resources and the protection to expand the colonization process, the eventual removal of Palestinians from their land, the dispossession of Palestinians. This is a fact. But now, this ain't 1917 anymore. This ain't 1948 anymore. Now, the primary patron of Israel is not the British, it is the United States. And it's been like that since the 1960s, certainly the 1970s. My sister, Yolanda Ruiz, I'm so grateful for you, my sister. Thank you for helping me build this platform. I love you. I love you. And she is a brilliant scholar and poet. Y'all need to buy everything that Dr. Yolanda Celie Ruiz puts out into the world. Racial literacy is something that she talks about and builds on. So I want to make sure that y'all understand how important she is. So listen, the United States now funds Israel. The United States gives more than $3 billion a year to Israeli military. That ensures that Israel can function the way that it does. The United States also has an agreement to make sure that the Israeli military has a qualitative military edge. What does that mean? It means that they have to always have a military advantage over their ostensible opponents, right? We fund this. The US funds the occupation of Palestinians, $3.8 billion a year. That's a lot of money. Now we fund other places, ain't the only place. We fund Afghanistan, we give lots of money to a decent amount of money to the Palestinian Authority. We give money to UNRWA for the refugees. I'm not saying that Israel's the only people getting money, but they are getting the money that allows for the occupation to sustain itself. Furthermore, the United States is the most treasured and tight ally of Israel. So when you see uh, Joe Biden say that there can't be an inch of daylight between the United States and Israel, which has effectively been the United States' position at least since the Carter, I'll even say the Nixon administration, right? You began to see a radical shift in the politics of the United States and Israel after 1956. That's probably the last moment where the United States offered a significant public and powerful pushback to Israel. That was the Suez Crisis, what they call the tripartite aggression, where France, England, and Israel pushed back against and attempted to co-opt the Suez Canal from Gamal Abdel Nasser at a moment of really profound Arab nationalism. Again, we can do that another time. That's why we got this channel, so we could talk about all this stuff. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit that like button. I'll break this stuff all down. We're gonna have something called Night School, where I talk about this stuff in great analytic detail. You ain't got to go to college to get this knowledge, but you do have to be willing to sit and engage and read. So now the relationship is tight. The U.S. doesn't push back against Israel publicly. Now, is Joe Biden privately saying, "Hey, Prime Minister Netanyahu, we need a what do you call it? We need a ceasefire, or we need you to manage the relationship in Gaza differently, or we need you to respond to the conditions in the West Bank differently"? Potentially. My sources, and they're pretty good, are saying that yes, Joe Biden is doing more behind the scenes than he's doing in front. But that ain't enough. The United States has the ability right now to promote and to secure a ceasefire. Sam A, thank you for joining, family. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful, man. Thank you for joining. Um, he has the ability to endorse a ceasefire right now, and he hasn't. Joe Biden has also said, look, I'm a Zionist. Joe Biden identifies as a Zionist. And I think I'd like to believe that when he says that, he doesn't mean I actively and openly endorse a settler colonial project of dispossession. I think he's trying to say that he believes in the safety, security, dignity, and self determination of the Jewish people, which so do I. So does everybody that I know who's advocating for peace in the region. Of course, there are anti-Semites. Of course, there are Nazis. Of course, there are awful people who don't want the well-being of Jews to be prioritized, and they don't want Jews to be okay. There's a long history of this. Jew hate and anti-Semitism is as old as our modern history. So I don't want to understate how significant the threats against Jewish people are. Joe Biden's solution, however, has been the same as every U.S. president for decades now, which has been to allow Israel to exist at the expense of the safety, dignity, and self determination of the Palestinian people, and that's what cannot happen. And so, right now, it's not an abstract philosophical conversation. This isn't about revisionist Zionism versus cultural Zionism versus secular Zionism versus religious Zionism. This isn't about one state solutions versus two state solutions. This isn't about whether we endorse BDS or not. This isn't about those things. What this is about is an active genocide taking place as we speak. And I'm not being hyperbolic when I say genocide. I am not being hyperbolic when I say genocide. When I say genocide, I'm saying right now that the Palestinian people are the targets of an active and clear genocide. And quite frankly, it's not even covert at this point. So many uh, Israeli leaders, Israeli uh, uh, strategists, former Israeli officials have all said quite clearly that they want to destroy Gaza, that they want to knock it back 3 generations, that they want to uh, that they want to have a second Nakba. The Nakba, of course, is the Arabic word for catastrophe, and the Great Catastrophe of 1948. They're saying they want to replicate. This is the language that they're using. They're not being shy. They're not being coy. They're not pretending that they're doing anything other than what they're doing. Why am I telling you this? Well, because if an active genocide is happening and people are dying, Janice Cadeau, thank you so much for joining. Yo, we love y'all. We appreciate you so much. And Joe Biden has the ability to stop it. And the best he can say, the best Joe Biden can do is say, we'll go for a humanitarian pause. What is a humanitarian pause? A humanitarian pause is right now 3 to 4 hours of no violence to allow aid to get in. The problem with 3 to 4 hour humanitarian pauses in an area that dense, it doesn't actually allow people to secure resources effectively. It also doesn't allow them to get to safety. And it's even more difficult to get to safety when Israel has made it very clear that they believe Hamas is everywhere. They believe Hamas is under every university, under every school, they're under every YMCA, every church, every masjid. And if you believe that, and you also believe that the rules of war, as David, what was his name? Friedman told me, the former Trump ambassador to Israel told me last week on my show, that the rules of war say that all bets are off. I don't care what the UN says. I don't care what anybody says. We can blow up all of these places. That international law doesn't count. It's good in theory, but doesn't count in these instances. When you hear that, you understand that a ceasefire is the only way to get to peace. A ceasefire is the only way to get to peace. A ceasefire is the only thing that will stop outside nations. If you're so worried about Hezbollah, if you're so worried about uh, 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 radicalization in the region, well, if half of Gaza is under the age of 18, and they are watching their friends, their family, their parents, their elders, their community, their masajid, their churches, all being destroyed. What do you think their disposition is going to be? How do you think they're going to respond? What do you think the world looks like to them? If you want to stop Hezbollah and you want to stop wars and proxy wars in the north, how do you think you do that by continuing to bomb people? It's simple science here, common sense. Brandon Stark, thank you so much for joining me from Canada. I love you, appreciate the love. Lamont, welcome to the fam, my first silver member. I appreciate you, King. Christopher Berry, thank you so much for joining us, man. This is love like I didn't even anticipate, y'all. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful, y'all. Love y'all. Listen to me. There is a genocide happening. There is a specific group of people being targeted that will cause this population to dwindle dramatically, to dwindle almost entirely. This is not a theoretical genocide. This is not me being hyperbolic. A genocide is happening, and a ceasefire won't necessarily stop that ultimately, but a ceasefire is at least part of what we need. So if Joe Biden is not willing to have a ceasefire, if he's not willing to even say the word ceasefire, and here's the thing, the word from the White House is all evidence suggests, and this isn't even a secret, this isn't even like a rumor, this is a fact. The White House has been told not to even use that language. What does that mean? What does that mean? It means that in this instance, the United States has either lost the capacity or is unwilling to exercise the capacity to hold Israel accountable and to hold Israel in line in terms of not engaging in a disproportionate attack on the Palestinian people. Even if we all say, look, Israel can respond and it can defend itself. And of course, there are debates about whether there's no debate. An occupying power actually can't defend itself. The question, however, is, does Gaza constitute the condition of an occupation? It's an effective occupation, but it gets blurry. But certainly, if 1,400 Israelis are killed, Israeli civilians are killed, I don't expect anything except a response. But the question is, thank you, Christopher Berry, again, love you. William Stevenson, I'm so grateful, man. Maria Atex, the love is I'm just so grateful. If the response is this disproportionate, you must do something. Rashida Tlaib, the Democratic Congresswoman out of Michigan, Detroit, shout out to Detroit, has said, President Biden, we will not forget that you did not call for a ceasefire. Now, Rashida Tlaib has been one of the most courageous voices in the Congress, along with Ilhan Omar, along with other, voices for sure. As a Palestinian, I'm sure she's particularly vested in this. But Rashida Tlaib, quite rightly, is saying, Joe Biden, don't take our vote for granted. Yes, we're Democrats. Yes, we're organized together. Yes, we have a common mission, and our priority is probably to defeat Trump more than anything else. Let me be clear. I'm not a Democrat. I'm a Green Party member, been a Green Party member for decades, not a Democrat myself. But I'm speaking for Rashida Tlaib here. I understand her perspective. Rashida Tlaib is saying, Joe Biden, if you don't call for a ceasefire, we're going to remember this. And it's not just Rashida Tlaib who's saying this. I talk to voters every single day. Some of y'all in the comments are out there saying the same thing. I see y'all saying, look, Joe Biden, we wanted to vote Democrat. We're trying to give you the benefit of the doubt. You were never our choice. But we didn't vote for you because we were inspired by you. We voted for you because we didn't want any more Trump. Well, we did that, but you're replicating much of the same war hawkishness. In fact, you're more hawkish because Trump at least was trying to say, hey, we're going to be non-interventionist. So a lot of people are saying, wait a minute, we can't vote for Biden and reward him for genocide. We can't do this. And it's not just Biden. Rashida Tlaib was censured by the Congress. She's the 26th person in the history of the United States to be censured by the US Congress. Child molesters, rapists, killers, Klan leaders have been in our political halls in the United States and have not been censured by Congress. But y'all censured the one Palestinian woman for speaking up, and 22 Democrats co-signed this. Nobody in the US Senate is calling for the ceasefire. People like John Fetterman in my state of Pennsylvania, not only not calling for a ceasefire, but trying to double down. Cory Booker, as always, pledging his allegiance to the Israeli state. Not literally, but certainly echoing Biden's statements. Bernie Sanders, supposed to be our conscience of the Senate, supposed to be our radical left-wing voice, supposed to be our champion for human rights, is also echoing the same ridiculousness about why he cannot support a ceasefire. Bernie, you disappointed us. Brandon Stark, you did not. Philistine Hoda, appreciate you. So why am I saying this? The Democrats have been feckless on this issue. They have been cowardly on this issue. I wrote a book with Mitchell Plitnick called Except for Palestine, the limits of progressive politics. And what we were making, the argument we were making is Aisha Rana, shukran katir, shukran jazilan. What the argument we were making in the book was a simple one, that the progressive vision and the progressive politics, the progressive ideologies that we articulate on the left, they seem to work until it comes to Palestine. Everybody's outraged about Ukraine. Democrats were united with Ukraine. We stand with Ukraine. Flags of Ukraine. Rallying the international community to say you can't kill civilians. You can't take land by force. You can't do any of these things. That's what they said. Fast forward a year and a half, and now what? Suddenly we're silent? We're outraged at the Mexican border with family separation and violence at the border. Yet somehow when it comes to here, the politics are limited. There's a Philistine, right? There are always exceptions. They say in Arabic, right? There's always these exceptions to Philistine. Why? This is the context that we're talking about. Everybody, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit the join button. I'm loving the support. I'm loving the love. This is how we're building this platform so that we have a sustained independent media force at all times. Family, we are building a radical movement. That's what they told us. They said that we had a squad. They said that the party was drifting to the left. They said the Green Party people like me could finally feel safe and comfortable, maybe voting for some Democrats. That's what they told us. And they said the reason was because there was a moral consistency that was there. But now, the question is, come on down, babe. My wife is standing at the stairs. I'm about to leave y'all. I appreciate the love, but I'm going to answer the question. There has to be a moral consistency here. And if not, it is entirely reasonable. It is entirely reasonable that people are going to go to the polls and make a different choice. But the question was, before I go, and I'm going to answer it because I don't want to leave y'all hanging, should we? The question was, should we? And the answer, I think, is more complicated than that. I think we have to hold people accountable. I think we have to demand an end to the we have to demand a ceasefire. We have to demand that people know that they will be primaried if they don't make these decisions. If Joe Biden isn't going to call for a ceasefire, he needs to be primary. We need to immediately find a Democratic candidate who can come, who will push for a ceasefire. That way, we don't have Trump in office. We don't have Trump in office. but we also get the candidate that we want. This has to be the answer around the country. We need to be primarying these candidates and producing um, possibilities that are different than the ones that we have. That's the only way that this works. But I don't think that we can cut our nose to spite our face. Look, if you're Palestinian and you say you can't pull the lever for Joe Biden because he's allowed genocide to happen in your family, in your community, in your village, in your network, in your bled, I ain't mad at you. But at the end of the day, we have to make a pragmatic decision that will lead to safe outcomes, not just in Palestine, but in Congo, in Haiti, everywhere. We have to also protect the courts. We have to protect our voting rights. We have to protect affirmative action. We have to fight for women's reproductive rights. We cannot ignore what's happening, but we have to be strategic in how we fight for them. Because if the outcome of our resistance is Donald Trump being president or Nikki Haley being president or Ron DeSantis being president, that doesn't make Palestine any freer or any safer, and it doesn't make our conditions here any better. We can do both, but we have to be tactical, we have to be strategic, and we have to figure out how to get the demands we want met by the candidates at the same time, at the exact same time, that we also have a grander vision that's beyond this moment.